All right. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming to this webinar. My name is Tyler Hogan. I'll be your host tonight. And let's start off with a quick word of prayer, and then we'll do some housekeeping and launch into things. Heavenly Father, we are just so grateful for this time that you've given us together. We are we are always amazed by your plans and the things that you bring into our lives and the ways that you lead us. And so, Lord, we come at the start of a new season of homeschooling, new seasons of all kinds of different things, depending on our particular circumstances. But Father, we're grateful for the opportunities that you've placed in front of us. And we can't wait to see what you're going to do next. So we come to you in faith, and we ask that you would use this time to encourage us, to equip us, to follow your leading. And we just thank you for the incredible community that you have built around homeschooling, and just so appreciate the ways that you use your people to bless each other. And we pray these things in your name. Amen. All right. Well, my name's Tyler Hogan. I'm the president of Bright Ideas Press. And with me tonight, we've got a couple of fantastic co-panelists. We have my mother, Maggie Hogan. She founded Bright Ideas Press and homeschooled my brother and I. We have Susan Barton, who's our COO at Bright Ideas. And we have Janice Price, who is a veteran homeschooler and a curriculum consultant over at Rainbow Resources. So tonight's theme is on new seasons, and really we want to take this time to encourage you and to see how we can help, maybe offer some suggestions, some tools, and to have a time to answer your questions. Some of you sent us questions ahead of time. And if you didn't get a chance to send us questions when you registered, that's fine. It's not too late. If you're not familiar with the Zoom platform already, there's both a chat panel and also a Q&A panel. The chat panel is great. You can use that to chat with the other attendees or with the panelists. But if there's a question that you want us to try and tackle during the Q&A time, use the Q&A panel, and that'll come directly to us. And when we get to the Q&A, I'll be able to see those and moderate that more easily, so I don't have to go scrolling through lots of chats. So Q&A panel is great for communicating with us. The chat is great for communicating with everybody who's here. So I figured, since this is I think we're going to be having some new homeschoolers watching this, or people just entering a new season of homeschooling, like maybe this is your first year homeschooling teenagers, or dealing with middle school, or trying out a different method of homeschooling. There's all kinds of ways it can be new and exciting and scary and all kinds of other things at the same time. So I figured I'd go ahead and start just by sharing a little bit of our family's story. We started homeschooling in the early 90s. My older brother, JB, he was in, I think it was 3rd grade, and he was in the Gifted and Talented program at our local public school. But rather than being a place where he could be engaged and challenged to learn more and go deeper, sadly, all it meant was that they used him as a tutor for other students who weren't necessarily performing at the same level that he was. So rather than making it a great positive experience, it became a real drag. And by the end of the school year, he hated school, he hated books, he hated learning. And that broke my mom's heart, and she decided that was just not acceptable. You should not be learning how to hate school while you're in there. So she decided to pull him out just for a year, she said, to try and just reignite that spark, that love of learning that he had as a child. So they started off by doing what's now called interest-based education. So in the different subjects, Mom would ask him, hey, so in science class, JB, what do you want to study this year? And he would give a typical little boy answer like, I want to study dinosaurs. And it was great because they went and they studied dinosaurs and they checked out lots of books from the library, and they would do field trips to the Natural History Museum or whatever kind of cool exhibit was available. And, by the end of the unit, Mom had learned more about dinosaurs than she probably ever cared to know. But JB, more importantly, JB was engaged again. And he started to redevelop that love of learning, and he started to get that spark back, which was the goal. And when it came time to think about what the next year was going to look like, it was pretty obvious that what we had at home and the education that JB was having was something really special. And it wasn't something that he was going to be able to get by going back to public school this year. It was going to be, there was the potential to just crush his spirit again, rather than continue to fan that flame of love for learning. And so before Mom knew it, she had graduated both of us from our homeschool program. And now my brother and I are both homeschool dads. Between us, we've got 8 kids, and we're homeschooling them ourselves now. I mean, our wives are doing most of it because we're at work for most of the day, but we're engaged, and homeschooling for us is, we evaluate every year. Is this still the best option for our family? Is this the best option for each child? And, we keep coming back to, yes, this is exactly what we want to be doing with our kids. My wife is also a homeschool graduate. So for our family, homeschooling is really, it's a way of life, and it's kind of the only one we know. Sometimes Helen and I will entertain the idea of, well, what would it look like if we sent our kids off to a private school? And we just start laughing because we think of the poor teachers who would not know what to do with our kids, but even more wouldn't know what to do with us, because Helen and I are very, we take our responsibility for our kids' education and for directing and curating their education very seriously. And I think we would just drive any poor teacher crazy with all of our questioning, and we take our kids' education into our own hands because we see that as our calling. And if you're here watching this webinar, my guess is that you share that conviction that ultimately you as the parent are responsible for your kids' education and upbringing. So as we're talking about new seasons of homeschooling, whether you're someone who was kind of forced into the whole homeschool arena thanks to the coronavirus, or whether this is something you've been thinking about for a long time, or whether you've been doing it, but this coming year is going to be different in whatever different way, I want to let you know 2 things. First off, that you can do it. And second, I want to try and show you some ways that maybe Bright Ideas Press can help you in your journey. I was talking with Janice earlier today, and she was mentioning that she gets lots and lots of questions from new homeschool parents, but the underlying theme behind most of them, the question behind the question is, can I really do this? And I just want to encourage you that yes, you can. You as the parent, your kids better than anyone. You have their best interests at heart. You can give them the kind of attention and direction that they need. You have a clear idea of how to help, how to motivate, and how to challenge your child more than anyone else in the world. And studies have shown over and over again that parental involvement in education is the most important factor in predicting their success, not just academically, but as successful adults living life. So yes, parent, you can do this, and in fact, no one else can do it the way you can do it. So be encouraged, and I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're taking the time to get equipped for it, because it's not always an easy job. It's often very challenging, like every good thing. Good things tend to be challenging. Good things tend to be hard, but they also tend to be worth it. And I think you'll find your homeschooling experience to be a very worthwhile one. So what can Bright Ideas Press do to help you in this journey? We are curriculum publishers. We've been doing this for coming up on getting close to 30 years now. We've been publishing geography, history, science, literature, music, poetry, pretty much everything but math. Math is not our strong suit subject as a company, and there's so many other good programs out there. We've never felt the need to try and duplicate that. But as you get to know us a little bit better, I hope you'll find our curriculum and our other resources to be a great help and an aid to you. And there's a couple of things that I want to let you know about so that you know what tools are available and maybe a little bit about our philosophy of education. The first thing that you should know is that we want to help you keep things practical and simple. We work really hard to make sure that our books are as easy to use as possible. If you do nothing but just read the little teacher's introduction at the front of the book, you should be well equipped to use it. We try and keep it clear. We make sure that we explain how each of the pieces of the curriculum work. And if you have any questions, we're here to answer them. And people like our friends at Rainbow Resources have a whole team of curriculum consultants like Janice who would love to walk you through, hey, here's how to do this. If you ever have questions, there's such a great community and support for these books. Another way we try and keep it practical, aside from clear directions, is we like to leave room for margin, for error, for challenges, for real life to happen. We don't try and schedule everything so that it'll take up all of your time. I know a lot of us type A parents, we love having schedules up on the wall that have every hour of the day scheduled out for every child and what they're doing and all their activities and extracurriculars. And those are impressive plans, but real life happens. So we often do things like we'll schedule our subjects on a 4-day-a-week schedule so that you have the 5th day for catch up, or for when Tuesday was just too bonkers to get anything done and now we need Friday to go over that material again. Or hey, there's a great exhibit that's in town for 1 day only and I want to be able to skip this whole homeschool day and just go do that for homeschooling. And we encourage that. We think taking advantage of those kinds of opportunities are so important. And you know what? The textbook will always be there for you when you get back from the zoo. And so don't feel bad about taking the time to live your life. Homeschooling is beautiful because of the flexibility and autonomy it offers you. If you want to pack up your family and go out on a road trip for 2 weeks, you can do so, and it won't destroy your school year or get your kids so far behind they'll never be able to catch up. So we try and leave room for that kind of margin, while also leaving room for challenge. So if your kid is particularly interested in a certain subject or topic, they can go deeper in it, and we give you avenues to explore further without making it so burdensome that you have to do everything and there's just too much to do. We want to leave room for margin, and we also want to leave room for challenge and going deeper when you want. Another way we try and keep things simple is almost all of our books cover a fairly wide range of grades. Mystery of History, for instance, that's our premier world history program. There's 4 volumes that covers from creation all the way up through modern days from a world history perspective. And it's a fantastic series, but all of those books are designed not just for one grade. They're designed to be used with a family. So if you've got kindergarten, 3rd grade, 6th grade, and a freshman in high school all at the same time, you can use the same book for all of them. I've seen families who have tried to do it the other way, where they have a different history program for each of these vastly different grade levels, and the mom was going crazy trying to keep all the assignments and all of the time periods in her head so she can teach it. And we cut that whole mess out by giving you one book that you can use with all of them at once. So we'll have activities that are broken down by age group that says, these sets of activities are geared for K through 4th grade, or 4th through 8th grade, or 8th through 12th grade. And we make it really easy for you to identify which pieces are going to be a good fit for your student or students, which also means that a lot of our programs are reusable. So if you're going through Mystery of History, you might go through all 4 volumes when they're on the younger side, and then cycle back through them again in junior high and high school, which is, in addition to being a cost savings, it's neat to be able to go back over things that you're familiar with from 4 or 8 years ago and get to dive into them in a whole new light and a whole new depth. So being multi-age and reusable helps really simplify your homeschool day, because you can do so much of it together. And that kind of approach is something that we offer in pretty much all of our curriculum. They're not all K through 12, but most of them are at least 3rd through 8th grade, which is a pretty big range. And then you can adapt them maybe for high school, or supplement if you need to, just so that you can keep everybody together. So keeping it simple, keeping it practical, making it kind of real life, that's one way that we want to try and help make your homeschool experience as fantastic as possible. A second thing that we do in all of our curriculum is we want you to be able to tailor your kid's education to your kid. And there's when I started homeschooling, there were really only 2 textbook options. And if you didn't like either of those, you had to create your own curriculum from scratch. And these days, that's not the case. If you walk into a homeschool convention or go shop online, there's just so many options out there. It can be mind-boggling just to try and analyze what would be a good fit. And a lot of that is because so many curricula out there are very segmented. This curriculum is designed for 5th grade boys with a visual learning style, who are in a Baptist denomination. Like some of them are really that niche. And ours, we take kind of the opposite approach. We want to be something that anybody can use. So we make our curriculum flexible. We give you lots of activities and then trust you as the parent to find the ones that are going to be a good fit for your kid and for your family. You know your kid's learning style better than we do. You know what's going to motivate them and what they're going to roll their eyes at. You know these things about your kids, and you know how much time you have in the day, and whether or not you have glue in the school supply tub, or whether or not you need to go and make a trip to the store to pick something up. And so maybe it would just be better to do that on a different day. Like, all of those little details are something you as the parent, you've got that under control. So we give you lots of choices and just let you pick. One of the most common mistakes people make when they're trying to use our curriculum is that they try and do everything in the book, which is a great way to set yourself up for burnout. So whenever I'm talking with homeschool families who feel frustrated or overwhelmed, I say, well, what pieces are you using? There's in the history program, there's the timeline, there's the map work, there's the reviews and exercises and hands-on projects. Which ones are you doing? And they'll say, well, all of it. I say, well, that's your problem. Pick the things that are important to you, that are going to be a good fit, that'll get your child engaged, and toss out the rest, because you can do that. You are the teacher, and you have so much freedom and autonomy. And especially if you're coming from a public school background, that might be just very, very hard to feel it's okay to not do something in the book. Like, it's there in the book for a reason. I'm supposed to do this. That's not how we design our books. We put more in there than any one family should try to accomplish, so that you can pick and choose the stuff that'll work well and really tailor everything to what's going to be the best educational experience for your students. It gives you room to go really deep in certain areas, to skip the activities that aren't going to be a good fit, and still feel like you've done more than enough, and had a really fun time doing it. We work really hard to make sure that learning styles are represented across the board, that there's stuff for your visual learners, your auditory learners, your kinesthetic learners, your read-write learners. Like, there's something in there for everybody. Not necessarily every lesson is going to have, 17 different options, but over the course of the unit or the course of the year, no matter what their learning style is, they've been engaged with something. And a lot of the activities appeal to more than one learning style at the same time, which is great if you've got more than one kid with vastly different learning styles and they can still do the same projects together. So pick and choose, have fun, tailor it, and make it the best possible way for your family. So we try and help you keep it practical and simple. We try and help you tailor your school to fit your student. And lastly, we try and help you feel equipped with all the tools you need to be successful. So, and that comes through things like webinars like this one. We've got other webinars that are going to be coming up. There's one, I don't know exactly which one is scheduled next. Susan can correct me in the comments, but we have a webinar called Demystifying Learning Styles, and it's based on the book that we published by the same title, and it's just there to help you understand how learning styles work and sort through all the science and find the most helpful and practical and applicable gems of information from the large body of research that has been written on the topic. So webinars like this, I mentioned the teacher introductions for each curriculum piece that we publish. And then there's also supplements that we offer, like Wonder Maps. Wonder Maps is not a curriculum piece, it's a digital atlas. It's got a huge library of maps of the world, maps of the United States, and then a big, big section of historical maps and thematic maps. So if you want to find a map of what Europe looked like circa 1300 AD, you can find that. And all of them are customizable. They're real easy to find and make your own, and you can print them out, and bam, you have a custom-made map with fantastic information on it, or just a blank outline map for whatever else you want to use it for. And so a tool like that you can use no matter what curriculum piece you're using. Maps are great for history, for geography, for literature, for math, for science. Like there's no end to the possibilities of how you can use something like Wonder Maps. So that, we try and make it so that life is a little bit easier. I like to publish the kinds of things that I would want to use with my own family, and that would make my wife's life a little bit easier. So getting equipped with the kind of knowledge to understand the curriculum and teach it well, and then the tools and supplements to be able to take it even further. And then even more helpful is we have partners like Janice at Rainbow, who is a fantastic resource, and will sit down with you on the phone and give you a consultation on the best curriculum fits for your family for free. Like, this is incredible coaching that they just offer and give away, which is amazing to me. And her and her whole team are really good at their jobs, and they know the curriculum in their catalog, and they can help you find something. And if you have a unique situation, like if you have a student with special needs, or if there's a particular worldview or position that's really important to you that you want to make sure is reflected in the curriculum, they know what's in these books, and they can help you sort through what's going to be the best fit for you. My daughter is, or one of my daughters, I've got 5 kiddos. One of them is very dyslexic and ADHD, and finding the right curriculum fit for her is sometimes a challenge. And so being able to pick up the phone and talk to a specialist who knows exactly what I'm talking about, that means the world. And there have been moments when, talking to that right person on the phone has made me kind of tear up a little bit because someone gets it. So don't hesitate to give them a call. They are amazing people, and they've got just such a great wealth of knowledge. The homeschool community is an amazing place. There's so many great veterans, so many great people who are just delighted to help you, so many organizations that are just dedicated to your success. And we are here to be a part of that. We are here because of you. Our whole purpose for existing as a company is to help you have an amazing homeschooling experience by providing the best possible curriculum and supplements to solve your problems and meet your needs. So I've been talking for probably a lot longer than I intended to, but I get excited about this. So I apologize for going long. I want to spend the remainder of our time together answering some questions. Like I said, you guys submitted some ahead of time, but don't hesitate to use that Q&A panel to ask anything, and we'll try and get as many of these in as we can. So I'm going to go ahead and ask our fantastic panelist team to go ahead and unmute and turn on your cameras if you would, and we'll go ahead and start jumping into these questions. So the first question that I have is for you, Mom, if you don't mind. This one is, so Maggie, you've graduated 2 sons who are both homeschool dads. What do you wish you had known starting out as a homeschool mom?
Oh, it worked. Oh,
Hey.
You guys have no idea. Praise God. All right, speaking of going on too long, just do this if I do, because there are things I wish I'd known before I started out.
I think you need to have a whole workshop about things I wish I'd known.
I think I do. A couple of really important things I wish I had known. You have to understand, I started back in '91 and I just only knew one other homeschooler and they weren't even doing it legally. So I didn't know a lot. One thing that I really wish I'd known though was to relax, because I felt pressure to prove that what we were doing worked. And I felt that pressure from myself, from my family, not my kids, just people watching, because they didn't know other homeschoolers were sort of weird. And being under pressure doesn't,
be fair.
Okay. But being under pressure doesn't bring out the best in me, or probably most people. So I really wish I'd known that it's going to be fine, people. It's going to be fine. Homeschooling is a process. You could have not just a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, but you could have a bad year and still be fine. I promise you. Pray, give it up to God, do what He wants you to do, and it will work out. So relaxing would be one thing I wish I had known. Another thing was, I wish I had spent, and I guess this kind of ties in with it, I wish I'd spent a little bit more time on character. Somehow I, don't do that wrong, Tyler. My character. I was so intent on proving that we could do this and we could do it well and we could get the grades and we could get the scores and all those things that I didn't spend as much time on character in the early years that I wish I had. Bible memorization, for example. It did not occur to me in my first couple of years that that could and should be a part of what we did in our homeschool. We did it, but it wasn't a regular thing like it could have been, and I wish it had been. So don't be confused and thinking that that education means curriculum. It doesn't. Education means learning whatever it is that the Lord wants you to know. And I promise you, you can't teach your kids everything they need to know.
No.
It's not possible for you, me, anybody. What we want to do is teach them how to learn so that they can find out what they need to know. Because they will always need to know something, and you're not always going to be there to give them the answers, and you don't want to be. That's not your job. So I guess those are the main things that I really wish I had known starting out. Y'all just relax, trust the process, trust the Lord, remember to pray, and you will be okay, and your kids are going to turn out fine. They might be a little odd, but you know what? I embrace that, because I look around and I see normal, and I don't really like normal so much. So I'm gonna, you know what? I can get going on this kind of stuff, so I'm gonna zip it so somebody else gets a chance to talk.
No, it's all good. That's important reminders. Home education is about a lot more than just academics. It is about the heart. It's about instilling a love of learning. It's about raising successful adults and not just getting them to the finish line of high school graduation. That's not the finish line. That's just the next leg.
Well, people would ask me, don't you worry about getting behind? And my standard answer is, behind whom? Like, where's the line? I'm not standing in line. My kids aren't standing in line. We're going to be where they need to be when they need to be there. It's not a competition, but too often our society makes it feel like a competition, and I just don't think there's a biblical model for that. I look at the way education happened in the Bible, and it wasn't by taking tests and seeing who gets the best score.
Yep. All right. Next question is for Janice. So Janice, you've been a education consultant with Rainbow for, is it 13 years now? Is that right? Oh, here, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. No, longer than that, since 2003. So 17, going on 18 maybe, something like that.
That's fantastic. So in your experience giving people advice, what are the questions that you find most common among new homeschoolers, and how do you answer them? I love that question because it's the question that says, I don't even know what questions I'm supposed to be asking here.
You know, I've actually had people say that to me. I don't really know what I'm supposed to be asking. The questions, they fall into a lot of categories. You know, people are they ask curriculum questions, they ask product questions, very specific product questions, they ask time questions, they ask money questions. So there's all of those different types of things. Matter of fact, back when I first started, and then after a couple of years, we added Donna, our second consultant, and she and I kind of compared notes, and we realized we were fielding the same types of questions all the time. And they sort of sorted themselves out, and we ended up making an acronym about it. So, which we use as the family. You may have seen, or people might have seen the family way. And those start with faith or philosophy. So, what does it reflect? How do you reflect, just as Maggie was talking about, how do you reflect your own faith into your homeschool? Approaches, how do you want to approach learning? How do you want to approach it for your children? Money, what kind of money constraints do you have? Individuals, that's something else that Maggie talked about. What are the individuals? Actually, you were talking about that too. Who are the individuals in your homeschool? Life, which is, well, we've found out a lot about life this year. They can throw you curves sometimes. Sometimes it's the whole nation with a curve, and sometimes it's just your own personal family. And then the last one is you, which has to do with, how do I teach, or what kind of curriculum works the best for me to teach, those kinds of questions. So we deal with those questions all the time from everybody. And it really helps to think through them, because and when we talk about people, and when we talk to people, not talk about them, when we talk to people, we're always dealing with those questions, and it helps us find the right fit. We are all about finding the fit with curriculum, because that's really the secret to success. It needs to fit your family, it needs to fit you, it needs to fit your students, it needs to fit your belief structures, your Christianity, all of those things. All of those things are important. It needs to fit. And that's why you'll often hear us say, there isn't, what works for your friend or your neighbor isn't necessarily going to work for you. You have to find what fits you as a family. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I think I talked around your questions a little bit. Part of that is because I think underneath all of those is the one that you mentioned, am I going to be able to do this? Will I be able to do this? So yeah, lots of questions. Questions are good. We love questions.
I love that family framework. I'm going to need to get that posted on my wall somewhere. That's excellent. All right, Cheryl asks, what science curriculum do you recommend for middle school and beyond? I'll go ahead and take that one. We have a delightful middle school science program called Christian Kids Explore Science. There's 5 entries in that series. There's biology and earth and space, both of which are geared for probably about 3rd through 6th grade. There's a creation science volume, which is a little bit older, so probably 4th through 7th grade, maybe 8th. And then the other 2 entries are for older, that's about 6th through 8th grade, and that's chemistry and physics. Those 2 are particularly popular. They're really great introductions to that subject. For high school, we don't publish any high school science programs, so you'll need to call Rainbow and ask their consultants to help you find a good fit for your family. But ask about, for middle school and elementary, ask about Christian Kids Explore Science. It's very hands-on, it's very doable, it only takes 2 days a week. There's fun projects, experiments that don't require anything more than what you probably have around your house or a quick trip to the store. I think the most exotic thing in all of the volumes is biology has an owl pellet dissection, which is super fun. And they're surprisingly easy to find, owl pellets online. That's like the only weird thing you have to get for the entire series.
Rainbow has them, by the way.
Yes, yeah, Rainbow carries all of our stuff. So anything that I recommend that we publish, you can just go to Rainbow and pick it up there. They're awesome. Not just because they carry all of our stuff, but that's...
No, I think she's saying they carry owl pellets.
Oh, owl pellets. Okay.
We do. We carry owl pellets. We have several
awesome.
We have several different types, by the way. So yeah, you have your choice.
I love it.
Great.
All right, Susan, how do you get dinner on the table, do laundry, chores, ministry, be a wife / mom / friend, etc., and homeschool? I think this falls in that time question category Janice mentioned.
I'll add one that I only get to add and make Tyler happy. That's my unique role. You know, that goes back to what both Janice and Maggie have shared with us, because when we consider all the hats that we wear and we put ourselves in the expectations of society, it's really not possible to wear all of those hats well at the same time. And you have to establish a new model that fits your family, that's unique to your home and your needs, and to set aside expectation or presumption and decide what's most important to your family and relax. So at the end of the day, if you didn't get to a certain place, it's okay. And if everybody's coming in and having a sandwich around the counter and you're having a good time with one another and your children are nourished, that's okay too. It's even okay if it's a box of cereal, you know, whatever needs to get the job done in a day. But to relax and to be a family. We have so many stresses on us in all of those roles that don't need to be there. And we put them on ourselves with expectations that come to us from outside of our home. So if we come together as a family, you know, I found it helpful. I've been homeschooling as a single mom and working from home, and I have 2 sons. And I found it helpful as we needed to adjust to different phases of life and homeschooling, to sit down as a family and have a family business meeting and decide, you know, what's most important to everybody. Is it really important to you that, you know, I have one student that my youngest son really wants to be able to be at a certain place at a certain time of the day. And if I curtail that, it affects him feeling like he's satisfied. I have another one who's very extroverted, and my oldest needed to make sure that there is that time for interaction and engagement during the day. So, you know, to sit down with your family and prioritize all of those balls in the air and find out which ones really matter and which ones you don't need to juggle anymore, that can help too, to really learn what's on their hearts and to adapt as you go through different stages.
Yeah, I love that. My wife, like most people, is her own worst critic, and sometimes at the end of the day, she'll come up and say, "Oh, Tyler, I wish I'd gotten so much more done. I didn't do this, I didn't do that." And I just say, you know, Helen, all of our kids they're alive, they are clothed, they've all eaten at least once, most of them more than that. and I think at least one of them picked up a book. This was a great day. You know, let's not overblow our expectations and feel like it all has to be perfect all the time.
You know, it's interesting because we'll often say that flexibility is one of the main reasons we want to homeschool. And yet when we find ourselves flexible, we give ourselves a hard time because we're not sticking to the schedule. So, yeah.
Yep, the irony.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so these next two kind of go hand in hand. What do you do with your little ones while teaching? And how do you teach multiple ages together? So my brother and I were 5 years apart, and I remember many classes that JB took. Mom just had me in the same room at that time, and it wasn't that I was doing the same studies, but I was listening. I might have been playing with Legos or messing around with silly putty or, you know, making a mess somewhere, but I was listening and absorbing, you know, just through osmosis. And I'm an auditory learner, so, you know, that was a good fit for me anyhow. But just having the little ones around is good for them. And it helps set expectations for them for what their lives are going to look like when they're a little bit older, and, you know, what being engaged in their studies is going to look like. I've got 5 kiddos. My oldest is 11 and my youngest is 2. And there's a lot of subjects that we can do together. We do our history together. You know, we read the lesson text aloud. The older 3 participate in the review games together. I'm usually involved in them, as well as the one who passes out marshmallows and chocolate chips for right answers. And I love that role. And while they're doing that, you know, my younger boy, he's 5, and I don't expect him to be able to spit back any of these dates or figure names to me, but he's starting to get a sense for history and what that means. And that's great, you know, for a kindergartner. My 2-year-old, you know, a lot of times she's distracting and adorable, but distracting. So, you know, sometimes we'll schedule classes around when her nap time is so that nobody has to be chasing her while also trying to teach a history lesson. Like, you can, if you've got a nap time or a quiet time schedule, they outgrow naps eventually, but they have a room and they can go in there and play quietly by themselves sometimes. And that is a-okay. You're not a bad parent for letting them play by themselves for a bit. If you just need that time to either work with your older students or just be by yourself, that's okay too. That's another expectation that we have to, you know, figure out, is this realistic? You know, I'm always going to be with my kids. Some moms love that. Some moms are introverts, and that would drive them crazy. So you can be a little bit strategic, and you can include them in as much as possible, and just, you know, not necessarily have great expectations of the young ones. But the more things that you can do together, the better. We do our math studies. The older 3 do math together. Now, they're in very different places. You know, they're doing different worksheets, they're studying different topics, but it's math time for all of them. And we can go from student to student to student and do a little tutoring with one, and then a little tutoring with the other, and a little tutoring with a third. And by the time we've made the rounds, the first one is ready for us to help them with the next worksheet, or, you know, whatever it is they're working on. So, you know, you can set up some rotational systems. There's a lot of different ways, and with a little bit of creativity and not putting too much pressure on yourself or any particular child, you can be very successful. And again, using a curriculum like the Mystery of History that's designed to be used for multiple ages at the same time makes that job so much easier, because it's already laid out, and things can work for all of them at once, or at least 2 of them at once, which that alone can be a game changer.
Tyler, I think, oh, I'm so sorry. Who did I just go over? Maggie?
Okay.
I think it's so, with the Mystery of History in particular, to have a curriculum, when we talk about fit, like Janice was saying, to have a curriculum that has an audio component and things like the coloring sheets, you can have littles right there. I mean, from the get-go, that can be enjoying that time and have a crayon in hand and hear those lessons. And it's intriguing to them because it's a different voice than mom or dad reading. So I think sometimes for those little ones to have something with an audio and then just something like a coloring sheet, a very basic that a toddler can do, I find that really helpful when you have small ones.
And we have supplements designed for that kind of thing. There are coloring pages for every lesson in the Mystery of History. So if you just need something to keep someone's hands occupied while you read the lesson aloud or listen to the audiobook, those things are available. They're not necessary to do the curriculum. Like, you don't have to buy all of the everythings in order to do it. The textbook alone will get you as far as you need to go. They're gravy, but you know, some people like a lot of gravy. So there's gravy in the boat, have at it.
I just was going to add one quick thing as far as keeping little ones occupied while you're teaching. Having them with you or in the corner of the room or whatever. One thing that I used to do, and Tyler may not even remember this, but I would have tubs that I kept put away that only came out during times where I needed him to be really kind of engaged in something that didn't need my specific attention. And
That's what those tubs were for.
That's what those tubs were. Yes, they were to keep you out of my hair for a little bit so I could work with your brother.
Now I understand why I love tubs so much.
That's why you love tubs. Yeah. So that's just a helpful little tip for any number of reasons. You can have those tubs, but just keep them in rotation and don't let them stay out all the time, because then they lose that little magical appeal that they have.
All right, well, Mom, this next one is for you. This person says, we had to homeschool like everyone else this year, but it was a disaster. Help, how do I get off on a better foot this coming year?
You know, I used to do a workshop that said something like, what was the title of it? How Not to Homeschool. Yeah, that was what it was called. And that was way before coronavirus, because that's definitely how not to homeschool. Okay, so a couple ideas. They got off to a bad start, and and the question was, they're going to try to continue homeschooling, I take it.
Yes.
Okay.
They don't specify their reason, but yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I've had years where I got off on the wrong start, even though I knew I was going to be homeschooling. So a couple of things. I find that for us, I use the summer to do things that, and part of this is my philosophy. Almost everything we did, I considered, in our state, we had to count days. You had to have a certain amount of days in to be officially, I don't know, approved, whatever. And so during the summer, anything that we did that was in any way that I would consider a learning experience, whether it was building a fort in the backyard or going to the beach or whatever it was, I counted that as a day on the calendar that we kept for this purpose. And that allowed me to be able to take time during the more academic time of the year where everybody needed some space or a break or a few days off or whatever. And I didn't feel like I've got to stay with the public school calendar, because I've banked time just for that. Not for being sick so much, but mental health days, absolutely. The other thing that I found really helpful was we rarely started, in fact, I don't think we ever started all of our subjects the same week. We eased our way into homeschooling because I can't do it any other way. Tyler is organized as his father. He has his ducks in a row. He likes to check things off. I'm not so good at that. So for me to try to start everything at once was overwhelming. So sometime in August, we would pick one or two things to kind of start working our way into it. And by the end of September, we would have built up to most of our classes. So if you're having trouble getting started, maybe you're trying to bite off everything at once, and maybe that's not a good idea for your family. Might work for some, not going to work for everybody. The other thing that I learned over the years, and I didn't learn this the first year or two, but I'm glad I figured out what worked for us, and that was the years that I really focused on history, which is one of my all-time favorite things. Well, I wish I'd had history back then. The years I've really focused hard on history, I would go lighter on science, not years, semesters. So if my first semester was real heavy duty history, my science would be lighter, like it'd be reading library books. It wouldn't be much in the way of record keeping for me. And then the next semester, it would be the other way around. I guess I don't believe that we need to do full bore every subject every day, every week for the year. It just philosophically doesn't work for me. And that's one of the things that I like about our curriculum. I was part of, I guess, Tyler, you probably remember this. You were part of the test group for Christian Kids Explore Biology, because one of my good friends wrote that book, and she wrote it as she was doing apologia science with my oldest son and her oldest son, and then the younger kids. She wanted something for them as well, and so she began developing kind of a junior version of what she was doing, what we were doing with our older sons. And it really made a difference coming in it from that perspective. It's like, oh yeah, he's getting plenty, but we're not doing this every day. We might hit it once a week, but he's still getting the information. So, I just like the way we do that, and I think that's just because that works for our family. But I taught in co-ops or was involved in a co-op almost every year of our homeschool, maybe every year of our homeschool, and I saw that play out almost every family. You know, because you start out either wanting to do too much, and then you feel like a failure when you don't meet your own unrealistic expectations. Or you don't know what to do, so you spend a lot of time floundering. And I just want to say, maybe just kind of go in a little bit more slowly. And maybe the other thing that really worked, Tyler had a really bad experience with math. And in all
I was attacked by a giant 7 as a child. It was very traumatic.
You should write that book. I'm mathematically challenged. I am hopeless with math. My husband, however, is fine. Tyler got my husband's genes, fortunately for him, but he got me as a math teacher, not so good. So what happened was I would find things that I thought would be the easiest way for me to teach, and I say that kind of loosely, math, and everything I found he hated. And we get along really well, he and I, except there's, and I think you might find that with your kids. You might find that some kids you get along with more easily than others, or you might get along in certain subjects more easily than others. So because the math thing just wasn't working, and I was like, so finally, I had him pick out his own math curriculum.
I remember that year very
you were
well.
at a conference? I said,
we were at a show, and I found the one that I was like, oh, I like this.
It was the most expensive curriculum on the market, by the way. But I had told him, I don't care how much it costs. If you'll be happy doing it and I don't have to be involved much, go for it. And so I think if you're having a disaster year, maybe look at your curriculum and say, is there something here that this child really doesn't work for them, or they're bored to tears, or they don't get it? That's when you call Janice, or you call Tyler or Susan, and you say, something's not working here, because it may just be a matter of a bad fit. And I know sometimes we feel like, well, I spent good money for that book. Well, you can resell that book, or you can save it for another kid, or you can pass it on. But if it's not working and it's making people cry, it's not worth it. I promise you. There are other ways around it, and finding the right fit for the right kid. My sons are so different. For me to find things that fit both of them, So, but if you're having a disaster, part of it might just be a bad fit, and you might just need to reconsider what you're using.
Yeah, so, there's no sense continuing to make a mistake just because you spent good money on it.
Exactly. Thank you. That just becomes a more and more expensive mistake. Like that haircut that keeps getting shorter.
It undermines your goal of teaching them to love learning. So,
Right,
all right,
exactly.
we need to keep moving here. We've
Yes.
still got a bunch of questions, and I don't know how many we're going to get through. This one is for Janice. How do you deal with reluctant learners?
Actually, this dovetails really well on what Maggie was saying, because, you know, it seems like with reluctant learners, you might have one child who's reluctant in a lot of subjects, or you might have child who's just reluctant in a certain subject, one particular subject. So you can treat it different ways. I would say that most families have a reluctant learner of some sort at some time, you know, and a lot of the things to do with them are a lot of what Maggie talked about. You know, you can get them involved in making their own decision. That's a big one to try to do. You can let them go at their own pace. You can look at whether it's fitting them or fitting you, and maybe you need to adjust and come to a different find a different product that's going to meet their needs better. So all of those things fit in and tie into that. You know what, you can also draw on the resources that you have. And I think a lot of times we forget to pray, to talk to God for wisdom, ask him for guidance, because he knows that student better than you do, and you know him better than anybody else. So, you know, so that's a good combination. You just sometimes have to seek that wisdom to find the right key there. Also, another thing to look at for resources is the fact that because so many people have reluctant learners of some sort, just like Maggie was sharing her experience, you can find friends, other people that can help you maybe get insight into that particular student. It's a little bit like a puzzle. You have to find the right pieces to fit together to make it work, and to bring, as you said, the love of learning back into things.
Very good. All right, next up, Stephanie asks, how does your curriculum help or work for a child with a learning challenge or disability? And similarly, another one asked, my 8-year-old isn't reading yet. Besides being concerned about that, I'm also having trouble reading all of his lessons aloud and keeping up with the other kids. Help. And I'll start with this one, but anyone else can feel free to chime in. One of my daughters is severely dyslexic and has ADHD. She is currently 9, and it took a few years of going through the phonics program that we were using to say, okay, this program has worked for all of our other children. Her younger siblings are passing her in the reading levels very quickly. This is not working for her. What's going on here? And you know, there's a whole journey I could share with you about trying to get the diagnosis and seeing, you know, is there medication that's needed? Or is there vision therapy that's needed? Because, you know, there's tracking or teaming problems or double vision, all that kind of stuff. It's been fun times trying to figure out how best to love and serve and educate this precious, priceless daughter of mine. It is challenging, and it will probably never not be challenging. But that doesn't mean it's impossible, and that doesn't mean that there's nothing that we can do. It just takes a lot of research, a lot of support, and a lot of adaptation and creativity on my wife's part and on mine. So some of the things that we have done, because we finally do have a diagnosis and we've been going to vision therapy, and it's been definitely helping with, you know, can she even see what's in front of her? But the more difficult part is, you know, the reading fluency, the decoding of the letters, and the neurological side of dyslexia. So we have a tutor for her that uses the Wilson method. There's a ton of methods out there designed to help dyslexic students learn reading and any number of other skills. The Wilson one is what the people that we're getting our advice from recommended, and we have seen a lot of growth with the Wilson method. It doesn't mean it's right for everyone, but it's definitely the right one for our little girl. And having a tutor, it's an online tutor, and she is phenomenal. We found her online miraculously. God just brought us together, and they meet on a very regular basis, and it's pricier than I wish it was, but it's helping her, so it's totally worth it. Our curriculum is, we don't have, a special dyslexic or special needs or, whatever the learning challenge may be, separate curriculum for that. But what we do have to offer are adaptations. And if you join any of the special education homeschool groups out there, I'm a big fan of Peggy Ployhar and SPED Homeschool. They're phenomenal. You can look them up. A lot of the conversation is not just where can I find specialized curriculum for this particular condition, but how do I adapt the curriculum that I already have? And fortunately, there's a lot of ways to do that. Some of it is a matter of slowing down the pace. Some of it is, invest in supplemental materials, like get the audiobook so that they don't have to read it all themselves, because it will take them forever to get through the first page, and you need to have the chapter done by the end of the day. But listening to the audiobook is a totally legitimate way to get the information. It's all the same words going into their head, and they'll remember it better, and they'll love it more because they're not constantly butting heads up with their most difficult challenge. And that doesn't mean you never challenge them, but it means that you don't make their entire life a struggle if you don't have to. So finding ways to get her the material in other formats that work for her, that's huge. We do family read alouds a lot, which is something all the kids like anyway, and that helps her, get whatever's in the book and not feel like we're doing something special to accommodate her. It's just a family activity. This is a normal thing in this household. But we've had to get tutors. We've had to talk to specialists and figure out what kind of adaptations are needed. We're looking at going into a co-op situation with her next year, and we're going to need to be talking to the teachers there about, all right, this is what you can expect from her. She will work hard. She is bright. She will be on top of this material, but you have to not ask her to, read the passage out loud to the rest of the class. That's not going to fly. She'll have covered the material at home. She loves theater, and she'll be in a play and she'll have a script that she can't read, or a musical score that she can't read. And I see someone posted in the comments about the Henry Winkler series, Hank Zipser. We're reading through that as a family right now. It's delightful. It's something all of our kids love, that's hard to find. What was I saying? But yeah, she will have her script or her musical score, and she won't be able to read through it, but she'll find the play that she's in online and watch it on YouTube again and again and again until she has it memorized. And she will memorize it faster than any of the other kids in her production, because that her mind works like that. That's the best way to get stuff in her brain. So that, yeah, you have to accommodate, you have to be creative, you have to be super patient. But it is absolutely possible to homeschool a special needs student, no matter what the learning challenge is. And honestly, a lot of the homeschool pioneers, back in the 80s and 90s, who got homeschooling to where it is today, many of them started homeschooling because they had special needs children that the local public school was not equipped to serve. And they had to be their own child's advocate to get any kind of service, and decided, what, we can do this better at home. And I think, there's a lot more services and a lot more understanding out there today about special education and special needs than there used to be. But boy, it is still sometimes vastly easier and more effective to do it at home. So going back to Janice's statement, you can do it. It is hard. There's no way around that, no matter what method it is challenging. But you can do it. It'll take a little bit of grit, but it's worth it. It's so beautiful seeing her flourish when she has opportunities, and seeing her, sorry, I'm gonna get a little emotional. Yeah, just seeing her take off and do amazing things and not be defined by her learning challenges, and just do amazing things despite them, is one of my most satisfying parts about homeschooling. I know I probably went for longer on that one than I should have, but if any of you guys have anything to add, feel free. Okay.
How do you add to a daddy's heart?
That's exactly what I was thinking. What else is there to say?
All right, let's see. Maggie, this one's for you. This is a broad question, but in general terms, how do you intentionally raise independent, lifelong learners? That's not too broad for you, I hope. And I know you've covered a lot of that already, so feel free to refer back to earlier questions.
I believe in kids doing stuff. I believe in kids doing stuff. I started JB doing his own laundry when he was 5. I regretted it pretty quickly because he decided to figure out how the washing machine worked. And the Maytag repairman was really good at showing him what he did to break it. But yeah, no, I think kids need to learn how to do practical, real things. I regret that we didn't do more auto maintenance, because I could really use that in my life right now. But I think that they become independent by being given the enough respect that you trust that they can learn how to do this. Tyler's little Aiden, when he was 3, was following, they were having a lot of construction done on their house, and Aiden was right behind, was it Paul? The builder, every day, man, wanting to hand him the hammer, do whatever he could do. And I take advantage of that. Take advantage of things that they're interested in, and look for things that they're interested in, whether it's learning how to fly a plane and joining Civil Air Patrol, or whether it's, in Tyler's case, deciding he wants to be a mime, M-I-M-E, mime, like, you know, talk with your hands kind of person. And you're thinking, really wasn't in my curriculum plan, but that's what Tyler really wants to do. We'll see what we can do with that. So you have to, one, provide them opportunities. You need to give them that space to learn how to do things. That's how you make them, not make them, that's how you help them to develop independence. Expect things from them. And I don't mean beyond what they're capable of, obviously, but yeah, as soon as you're old enough to have a checking account, I want you to have a checking account. I want you to learn what happens if you bounce a check, or if you, whatever it might be. Learn it while you're home with me before you go off and live on your own and you mess up your family. And we did have things happen. You know, no, older son, don't drive the van until it dies. When it's smoking, you need to pull over and deal with it. Yeah, we all have
Little things like that, you know.
We all have some of those experiences, but you want them to become independent. Our goal is for them to become as successful adults that love the Lord. And I can't do that by doing everything for them. And Tyler's kids, I tell you what, they know how to do their chores. That's one thing that he and Helen, they've got it down. And it's important. I kept telling them, I can't take you on the trips. I can't do things with you if I don't have help around the house. I can't do all the things. So Tyler took a cooking class, and then that made, and which was wonderful, because I keep forgetting to cook dinner, but guys like to eat. So he took a cooking class. One of our friends did a little co-op with a couple boys, and hey, he can cook. So yeah, just opportunities, and if necessary, some incentives. I don't mind saying, hey, if you do such and such, I'm willing to pay you for that. I'll pay you to do X, Y, and Z, because I think that's a worthy beyond doing something to help. It's beyond doing what's reasonable to expect the child to do. But if they take on additional, I don't pay them to make their bed. But if they take on additional chores, yeah, if I say, I really need this done, if you'll do it, I'll give you $1 or whatever it might be, I'll do that. Because I like, when I work, sometimes I do it for ministry, sometimes I do it just because I want to give. Sometimes I want to actually get paid for what I do. There's nothing wrong with that. Workers worthy of this hire, I know, right? I know. So that's the short answer.
That's a good answer. Let's see, Susan, this one's for you. Many families are experiencing different stress factors this year. Do you have creative ways to keep the peace and build strong relationships with one another?
I was just sharing in the chat box a second ago that, I have 2 boys, so, some of our things are a little bit more physical than others, but I think one of the most important things that we can remember at this season too, while we've been in this scenario of a pandemic, that we forget outside time and we can get so myopic in our homes. We need to get outside. One of our biggest relationship investments is outside hours. If we were fussy and a day was just a meltdown, I would tell the boys, get in the car. I didn't care where they were with anything, lay it down, get in the car. We went to a little mountain that's in the middle of our town and we would hike. And by the time we were out there hiking for an hour, there's something about God didn't create us to be in a box. We don't learn in a box. We don't relate in a box like this. That's not where our muse comes. So when you take yourselves back outdoors, it can be as simple as the backyard. Just come outside and read together, or have a picnic outside together, or go for a walk together. Go out and discover something new in nature together. Do your experiment outside. It won't get your kitchen messy. But that one element of being outside has been so powerful. And I just find that with myself as an adult. Maybe you as a mom, during the middle of a stressful day, if you have an older child that's sufficient, or all of your children are older, and you can take a step outside and give yourself a break to see the sky and listen to the sounds. And I know this sounds terribly simplistic, but it is one of the key ways that we've found to just hit a reset button. I mean, it's literally like Control-Alt-Delete, and we just started over again by having had that time outside. But also, like what Maggie's saying about having respect for one another as individuals. If you see that something is clashing, cover it in prayer. We give a lot of lip service to that, but sometimes I feel like we don't take time to stop and be intentional about the prayer, but B, prayer is a communication thing and it's supposed to go 2 ways. So did you give yourself enough time to settle and hear the answer? And I've had that conversation lately with my youngest, is 14, and this is something that's all of a sudden been on his heart, that we have a lot of communication headed one way to the Lord, but getting the answer means intentional quiet time, and sometimes that can be hand in hand with that outside time to hear the answer and understand the discernment that God has for you. And the communication with one another would be the third thing, the outside time, prayer time, that's a 2-way street. But that 2-way street between you and your child, if something's clashing and you've covered it in prayer and you just hit a little reset of time, and you still find that something is not harmonious, then have enough respect for one another that you teach them that they can ask you to talk about it. You go to them to talk about it, but there is this fluid dynamic of communication to say, hey, something's not quite right. Can we fix this? And have genuine conversation to deeply understand one another. And you're modeling for them how they troubleshoot those stressors and communication breakdowns in their own family later. So what a huge learning lesson to take time to deal with the relationship. That's one of the talks that I've had at conventions, that if things aren't right in your relationship, it's very difficult to impart information to someone because you don't have that emotional connection and your brain shuts down. So you can be putting out a whole, I mean, it's like when you get frustrated with someone, you know that you're really not taking in what they're communicating to you as well when you're frustrated with them as when you're having a feel-good day. And it's the same thing in learning. Take the time to fix the relationship and deal with those stressors, and learning will be a lot easier.
Amen. And homeschooling is such a great venue for addressing those absolutely essential pieces of non-curricular instruction, like how to handle conflict, how to process an emotion, how to get along with people that you don't necessarily even like, and deal with it when, you know, the neighbor kid is being obnoxious. Like, all of those things happen in the context of the family. That's where we're supposed to learn these skills anyway, and this gives us the time to really do that. One of my girls was walking with me just down the street the other day and was trying to have a better understanding of the difference between an introvert and an extrovert, and how her mother, who is an introvert, and her father, who is an extrovert, how she's supposed to treat us differently. And like, it was blowing her mind a little bit, but I could tell it was clicking because she started treating each of us differently, like right away. She saw like, oh, okay, perhaps mom needs to have a little bit more, you know, personal space and not just have me, you know, latch onto her all the time like I want to. But dad seems to love that. So, okay, let's go snuggle him instead. Like, those kinds of conversations get to happen. And that's such a beautiful thing. Okay, so we are past time already. Let's answer one last question, and then if any of you have any little gems that you want to share in closing, I'll give you a moment for that. So lastly, we have Holly asks, how was it getting into college? Was it hard not having high school accreditation? And mom answered this in the chat a bit. I don't know if everybody can see it, but for my experience, which granted was a few years ago, it was not hard at all. In fact, colleges, even back then, were courting homeschoolers because they recognize that homeschooling tends to produce academic excellence and independently motivated learners who don't need the college to handhold them through their 4 years and have a good graduation rate. And like, there's benefits to getting homeschoolers to come to your school. And that was, you know, more than a decade ago. So today, I mean, Susan, you've had a more recent experience sending someone into the college realm, but I'm guessing you would confirm that that has not been an issue.
We had more hurdles to jump, and you know, I won't dismiss the fact that depending on your state and the college of interest, then there can be more hurdles for you to work through. But if you're mindful of them in advance, you can be making sure that you have all of the paperwork or backup information that particular school or state might want from you in their university system. If you're looking at a public school and private school, you know, just they make, each university or state system makes their requirements and usually their preferences known about homeschool admissions on their website. So do a little exploring in advance and know, you know, in your high school years, okay, my child might be interested in our state university system or in these private schools, and these might be the things that I need to be aware of. But we made our transition very gradual, and I think that that was one of the things that made college entrance a lot easier for my son who wanted to go into sciences. We had online instruction that was homeschool. Then we had online instruction that was at a university. Then we did a small local campus on site. And then he was ready to be on campus. And it was just every year, it was a little further into that collegiate water. And that also made admissions easier because he had had dual enrollment online. He had dual enrollment at the local campus, and he was ready for the next step. So besides just being gradual for him, that was also a gradual proof of the pudding for the universities that he entertained. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And I was,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mom.
well, I would say one other thing. And I'm not up to date on this because I don't speak on it anymore, but when I spoke on high school, with my oldest son, we did a lot of club tests and AP exams. And state schools, private schools, Christian schools, everyone he applied to, he got into it, and no one ever asked him, can I see your diploma? Number one, never. Is your school accredited? Never. No one ever asked him that. They wanted his essays. They wanted his scores from the SAT and the club or the AP. He did both. No one ever asked him if he was accredited or if he had or wanted to see a diploma. Tyler's case, all right, I'm gonna brag for just a second. And then I know Tyler's like he's trying to do this, but you know, I said earlier he wanted to do mime, like, because he found this group that presented the gospel through mime, and he fell in love with it. Tyler was very theatrical. He's very musical. He played clarinet. He sang in the choir, all those things, which is kind of weird for mime because you can't sing. But anyway, he fell in love with it. And it got to the point where he started a mime troupe at our church. I think he was 12 or 13. And then he wanted it to get bigger, and he wanted to go put on shows different places. And I'm finally like, son, we lived close enough to our church he could walk there, which was good because otherwise, one day I kind of got a little aggravated because he was getting really behind, like probably math, I don't remember. And I'm like, you know, I know you love this. Oh, and he had choir rehearsal and band. Okay, all those things at church. I'm like, I know you love this, but that's not gonna, you want to go to college, because he wanted to go into ministry and he wanted to whatever. I said, but mime isn't going to get you into college. You need to get your math, yada, yada. Tyler got a full ride on a mime scholarship. God was just having the best old time laughing. I could just almost hear him chuckling, because why would I say you can't do that? Tyler wanted to serve the Lord through mime, and God said, yeah, he does. And I'm like, well, look at that. So
amazing the things you can get paid for these days.
Right? A full scholarship, because he's a good mime, a great mime. Y'all, just please relax. Pray. Let the Lord lead you. Love your kids. Love this time together. You don't have them for that long. You don't have them for that long. Love the time you have together. Call Janice when you need help. Call Tyler. Call Susan. Email us. Don't call me, because I don't answer the phone. But if you email me, I'll get back to you. Or if you hit me up on Facebook, I'll get back with you. I'm just not good on the phone. I'm the introvert, believe it or not. I know it's hard to believe right now, but I am. Anyway, done.
Beautiful. Janice, do you have any closing pearls of wisdom to share?
Well, there are things that have been touched on. I think probably the thing I often talk to about people, and others have talked about it tonight, is just keep it simple. If you're getting confused, ratchet it down, simplify it, simplify one course maybe, and then the others will fall into place. Simplify, you maybe, don't do a course 1 year. It will be okay. I know. It's like you just do what you need to do to keep it simple, or to simplify it, make it more simple. I think that's, there's been a very few times I've talked to people, and I think they need to ratchet things up a little bit. Most of the time they're trying to do too much, and they need to simplify. So it's a common theme.
Yes.
Yeah, and as humans, we are the worst at estimating how long things are going to take. So if we start off with simplicity and leave margin in the schedule, we'll have a much more likely, a much better shot at achieving something. Instead of
even worse, I figure out how long it's take our children to do something.
Yeah.
Because
they
can't find their shoes. Sorry.
Susan, do you have anything to close us out with?
To remember that we're going back to this concept of being lifelong learners, but we're learning together as a family. Mom's learning, dad's learning, children are learning. It's a lifestyle. Your whole family's lifestyle changes when you have a child. It changes again when you step into homeschooling. And I've told so many parents that after I had my children, I could not imagine life without them. And it's the same thing once we started homeschooling. I can't imagine having not had that blessing as a family. So in all of these words of relaxing and keeping it simplified and finding the right fit, the bottom line is that you're all just experiencing life together, and you're learning together, and you're doing family together. It's not that you're trying to be a school at home. You're learning with one another, and that never stops. There's no beginning to it. There's no end to it. You started teaching that child when they were in the womb and they could hear your voice. And there's not going to be an end, because hopefully you're still learning together until one of you isn't on this planet. So to me, it's a whole lot bigger than this formula of classes, courses, grades, achievements.
Preach it. Preach it, sister. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Mom, did you have any last things to say?
I'm good. I love you guys. Thank you all for coming and watching and listening, and anything we can do to help you, we want you to succeed. Whatever success looks like
that is
for
the
your family.
whole reason that we exist as a company, is that we want you guys to be successful, to have the best homeschooling experience possible. And we're here to help. We're here to answer questions. We're here to listen when you guys see, hey, there's no curriculum that covers this topic. Can someone please write this? That's why a lot of our curriculum is here, is because there was a need for it. So
composers, poetry.
Yeah, like people said, hey, I want to study classical composers, but I am not musical. What am I going to do? And then not terribly long, well, okay, maybe it was a few years later, a Young Scholar's Guide to Composers was released for that mom who wanted to teach their kids about music, but was not herself an expert on that. Or Young Scholar's Guide to Poetry, the same thing. I want my kids to appreciate poetry, but I know nothing about poetry. How am I going to do this? We have a book for that. So yes, we are here for you. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. We love chatting with you guys, and we're here to encourage you and equip you and just do whatever we can to give you guys the best possible experience. So thank you, Susan. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Mom, for being here. We're going to head and close out. And thank you all so much for coming. We're delighted to serve you. Oh,
Wait,
Susan.
wait.
We forgot to announce our winners.
Oh, yes. Go for it, Susan.
And I'm so sorry. Now I have to get back to my...
That's right. We have giveaways, don't we?
Oh, and you know what? Yeah, we don't have, since we don't have everyone here that is on our list, why don't I send these out as a follow-up email?
Do you want to share what wonderful prizes these people have won?
We do. We have 2 prizes, and one, Tyler, you can play Vanna. Tyler wrote North Star Geography, and we will have a signed copy of North Star Geography to one of our winners tonight. And we will also have a beautiful gift basket from Rainbow Resources. They put it together just for our event tonight, and it's full of homeschool supplies from their team that they wanted to offer.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Janice.
I have to confess, Sarah is our basket putter together. So
thank her for me.
Beautiful job.
Great job.
We were just too excited about talking to everybody that we forgot to give giveaways.
Now I'll send them out on the email, and then that will allow me to give Janice and the team a contact in that email too, so they can keep reaching out to y'all.
Great. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Talk to you all later.